Divorce finalized 3 years ago. Current spouse, Yoon Hae-rin. Amara freezes. Her world shatters in a single sentence. Everything she believed, everything she loved, has been a lie. And the man she trusted more than anyone has erased her from his life. From luxurious villas to hidden secrets, from the perfect love she thought she had to a twisted web of betrayal. This is a story of obsession, control, and survival. Will Amara uncover the truth before it's too late? Or will the cage close around her forever? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because every moment of this dark, suspense-filled story is about to unravel, and you don't want to miss a single twist. Amara stood at the counter of the civil office, her fingers digging into the strap of her handbag as if it were the only solid thing left in the room. The air smelled of paper, ink, and sweat. A ceiling fan rattled uselessly above them. The clerk stared at her computer screen for too long. "I'm sorry," the woman said gently, finally lifting her eyes. "Your records show your marriage was legally dissolved 3 years ago." Amara blinked. The words didn't land at first. They floated, meaningless. "That's not possible," she said. Her voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. "I'm married. I've been married for 5 years." The clerk swallowed. Typed again. Slower this time. Divorce finalized August 2021. Current spouse on record, Yoon Hae-rin. The room tilted. Amara's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Somewhere behind her, someone coughed. Papers rustled. Life continued. "I'm his wife," she whispered. "I'm Kang Tae-jun's wife." The clerk's eyes filled with pity. That look shattered what little hope Amara had left. "No," the clerk said softly. "You were." The screen reflected in Amara's eyes as the words burned into her memory. Divorced. Finalized. 3 years ago. Smash. 5 years earlier, the lights of the university auditorium blazed as students lined up backstage, clutching nerves and dreams in equal measure. Amara adjusted the hem of a model's dress with quick, confident hands. The fabric was rich with color, deep indigo, gold thread woven in patterns inspired by her grandmother's old wrappers, reimagined into sharp modern silhouettes. 5 minutes, someone called. Amara barely heard them. She was breathing through the familiar fear, the one that always came before her work was seen. This wasn't safe design. It wasn't polite. It was hers. When the models stepped onto the runway, the chatter in the room softened, then stopped. Kang Tae-jun stood near the front row, arms crossed, expression bored, until the first design passed him. His head lifted. His eyes sharpened. By the third look, he was no longer pretending to be casual. "Who made these?" he asked aloud, his voice cutting through the murmurs. A professor pointed. "Amara Ibekwe. Final year." Amara met his gaze as he turned toward her. Cold. Assessing. Curious in a way that made her spine tighten instead of shrink. "I'm Kang Tae-jun," he said afterward, extending his hand. "CEO of Taeyong Holdings." "I know," she replied, shaking it without hesitation. Something flickered in his eyes then. Not admiration. Ownership. 3 months later, she was standing in a silk dress that cost more than her mother's yearly rent, saying vows she hadn't fully processed. Her classmates whispered fairy tales. Her mother cried tears of joy over a video call from Lagos. "You're safe now," Tae-jun told her that night, pressing his forehead to hers. "I'll take care of everything." And he did. The villa was stunning. Marble floors, glass walls, gardens trimmed with mathematical precision, staff who bowed and spoke softly, clothes delivered without her asking, meals prepared to perfection. But it was quiet. Too quiet. They never attended events together. Tae-jun always had a reason. "My family is complicated," he said, brushing her hair back gently. "I don't want them hurting you." No photos of them existed publicly. No announcements. No interviews. Protection, he called it. The first camera appeared in the hallway a month after she moved in. For security, he explained. High-profile targets attract threats. Then another. Then another. When she mentioned missing her old housekeeper, Tae-jun smiled and replaced the entire staff within a week. "They talk too much," he said calmly. "These ones report directly to me. You're safer." Calls with her mother became shorter, then monitored. Sometimes they dropped without explanation. "She worries too much," Tae-jun said one night, kissing Amara's temple. "She keeps you anchored to a life you've outgrown." Amara told herself this was love adjusting to wealth. that this was normal. He was tender, too. Impossibly so. He learned how to cook jollof rice from videos, beaming as she forced herself to swallow the slightly burnt grains. "For you," he said proudly. When anxiety kept her awake, he read to her in a low voice until her breathing slowed. He built her a studio in the east wing of the villa, filled it with expensive equipment and fabric she barely touched. "You don't need the world," he told her. "You have me." Her scholarship offer from New York sat unanswered until the deadline passed. Their intimacy was intense, consuming. Taejun liked control, liked being obeyed. When she hesitated the first time, fear flashing across her face, he kissed it away. "Just trust me," he whispered. "This is how I love." She learned where pain blurred into approval, learned how to read his moods, learned when to disappear into silence. The night of their second anniversary, Taejun fastened a bracelet around her wrist. Custom platinum. Thin. Elegant. "It's beautiful," Amara said, smiling because he was watching. "It's a health monitor," he replied casually. "Heart rate. Location. If anything happens to you, I'll know." The clasp clicked shut. "For your safety," he added, his thumb brushing her pulse. Amara laughed softly. "You're always protecting me." "Always," he said, eyes darkening. "No one else will ever touch you again." As she lay in bed later, staring at the ceiling, the bracelet felt heavier than it should have. She turned her wrist slightly. A tiny blue light blinked once. Then again, unseen, watching. And somewhere deep inside her chest, a quiet unease took root. Small, faint, and easily ignored. For now, Amara's nightmare is just beginning, and you need to see how it ends. Subscribe now and hit the bell so you don't miss the next shocking twist. Amara woke to the soft chime of the bracelet before dawn, the light pulsing once like a heartbeat and then going still. Taejun lay beside her, already awake, watching her as if he'd never slept at all. "You don't have to rush today," he said gently. "I cleared your schedule." She nodded, the habit automatic now. There was no schedule to clear. Her design studio had been locked for months, fabrics folded away like relics of another life. The scholarship letter from New York lay unopened in a drawer she no longer opened, its presence more ghost than paper. When she had first told him about it, excitement trembling in her voice, he had smiled and held her face between his palms. "New York is dangerous," he'd said softly. "You don't need to struggle anymore. You're safe here. With me." He had kissed her forehead like a blessing. She had withdrawn the application that same night. The injury came 2 weeks later. It happened on a rainy afternoon, the kind that turned the villa's glass walls into mirrors. Amara had been in the studio, touching fabric she barely remembered choosing, when footsteps echoed behind her. She turned, startled, and pain exploded through her right hand. The scissors slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. She never saw the woman's face clearly. Just dark hair, sharp perfume, a force that shoved her into the table. Fingers twisted. A scream tore out of her before the world went white. By the time Taejun arrived, breathless and furious, the intruder was gone. He wrapped Amara in his arms, his voice low and steady as he called for doctors, for security, for answers. He never left her side at the hospital. He fed her soup, adjusted her pillows, kissed her knuckles one by one as if counting them. "You're mine," he whispered once, when she cried from the pain. "No one touches what belongs to me." The words should have frightened her. Instead, she clung to them like a lifeline. Her hand never fully healed. The doctors spoke carefully, avoiding her eyes. Nerve damage. Limited mobility. Precision would be difficult. Design, the way she knew it, would be impossible. Taejun took over everything after that. He dressed her, chose her meals, decided when she rested. His care was relentless, intimate, leaving no space for breath. At night, he reminded her how much she needed him, how fragile she was without him. His touch lingered longer, possessive, his voice threading ownership through tenderness until the words blurred together. "You feel safe with me," he would murmur. "Say it." "I feel safe," she'd reply, even when her mind floated somewhere above her body, watching a woman who looked like her nod and obey. Days passed in soft focus. Amara began to lose time. She'd stare at the garden for hours and blink to find the sun gone. Conversations slipped away from her, sentences dissolving before they reached meaning. Sometimes she forgot what her own voice sounded like. The villa felt smaller, its luxury tightening around her like silk ropes. One afternoon, While Taejun was away, she wandered into his office. She rarely entered that room. It smelled different, cooler, sharper. The walls were lined with books she'd never seen him read. His desk was immaculate, except for one drawer that hadn't been fully closed. She hesitated, then pulled it open. Inside lay a necklace, delicate and old-fashioned, the kind meant to be hidden beneath skin. Amara lifted it carefully, her injured hand trembling. A small tag dangled from the clasp. "To my eternal flame." The words burned. They didn't feel like something meant for her. Her chest tightened as a memory surfaced uninvited. A woman at a gala years ago. Eyes cold, smile sharp. A confrontation she hadn't understood then. A shove in a crowded hallway. The same perfume she'd smelled the day her hand was destroyed. The necklace slipped from her fingers and landed softly back in the drawer. That night, she couldn't sleep. Taejun's arm draped over her waist like a chain. She stared at the ceiling, counting breaths, listening to the house hum. When the bracelet pulsed again, she felt suddenly watched, measured. The next morning, she told him she wanted to go out. Just for a walk. He studied her for a long moment, then smiled. "Of course," he said. "I'll have the driver ready." "No," she said, surprising herself. "I'll go alone." Something flickered in his eyes, too fast to name. He kissed her cheek. "Be careful." The civil office was bright, impersonal, smelling of paper and disinfectant. Amara approached the counter with a calm she didn't feel, her anniversary dress brushing her knees like a costume from a happier story. "I need to confirm my marital records," she said. The clerk typed, frowned slightly, and typed again. "Ma'am, this shows your divorce was finalized 3 years ago." Amara laughed once, softly. "That's not possible." The clerk turned the screen toward her. "Current spouse, Yoon Hae-rin." The name struck like a slap. "I don't understand," Amara whispered. The clerk hesitated, then lowered her voice. "There was a remarriage filed shortly after. Everything is legal." Amara's mind fractured. Yoon Hae-rin, the woman from the gala, the shadow in the studio, the perfume, the hands on her own. She stumbled back from the counter, the room tilting. Images crashed together. Taejun's tenderness, his control, the necklace, the bracelet's blinking light. Outside, sunlight flooded her vision, harsh and unforgiving. She stood on the steps, people passing without seeing her, the city roaring back into existence. She looked down at herself, at the dress she'd worn to celebrate a marriage that didn't exist. Her phone buzzed. Taejun's name lit the screen. She didn't answer. As she walked away, her thoughts finally formed into words, quiet but sharp as glass. "How long have I been living a lie?" Amara kept walking until the city noise dulled into a distant hum. She didn't know where she was going. Only that stopping would mean breaking. When she finally returned to the villa, the gates opened as if nothing had changed. As if the house hadn't just swallowed her whole. Taejun was waiting. "You were gone longer than expected," he said mildly, stepping close enough that she could smell his cologne. "I called. I needed air," Amara replied. Her voice surprised her, steady, almost bored. He studied her face, searching. Whatever he was looking for, he didn't find it. He smiled and kissed her cheek. "Next time tell me. I worry." That night, Amara didn't sleep. She listened. The house had sounds she'd never noticed before. Faint clicks, low hums behind the walls. When Taejun's breathing evened out, she slipped from the bed and stood in the bathroom, staring at her reflection. The woman looking back at her wore obedience like makeup. Perfect. Convincing. She smiled at herself. Practiced. From that moment, Amara began pretending. She laughed when Taejun laughed. She leaned into his touch. She thanked him for meals she hadn't asked for and schedules she hadn't agreed to. When he spoke about their future, she nodded, eyes soft, heart sealed shut. During the day, she moved carefully. She found a public computer cafe and created a new email account, typing with her left hand, each keystroke deliberate. She memorized the login, never wrote it down. She applied quietly for an alien registration cancellation, asking questions in a voice that didn't sound like hers. The clerk barely looked up. At night, she sketched again. The lines were ugly at first, shaky, unfamiliar, but they were hers. She hid the papers beneath loose floorboards in the studio Taejun thought she'd abandoned. Faces emerged. Walls. Cages. The bracelet was the hardest. She waited until Taejun showered, water roaring loud enough to hide the soft snap of the clasp. Her fingers trembled as she turned it over, examining the seams. A pinhole. Too precise. Her phone lit up when she moved. A map bloomed across the screen. A red dot pulsed. Her chest tightened. She spoke softly, experimentally. Hello. The phone chimed. Audio waveform. Recording. Amara's breath hitched. She stood very still as understanding settled, heavy and absolute. She had never been alone. She reattached the bracelet just as the shower stopped. When Taejun emerged, towel slung low, she was seated on the bed, scrolling her phone. Everything okay? He asked. Perfect, she said, and meant the lie. Days later, laughter reached her. It slipped through the garden wall one afternoon while Taejun was out. Not staff. Not television. Real laughter. Bright, careless. Amara froze. She followed the sound to the far edge of the property, where ivy crept thick over stone. A maintenance ladder leaned forgotten against the wall. Her pulse thundered as she climbed, muscles screaming, injured hand burning. At the top, she looked over. The second villa was identical. Same architecture. Same garden layout. Same morning light spilling across glass. On the terrace, Taejun stood in a white shirt, sleeves rolled, smiling as he poured coffee. Across from him sat a woman with sleek dark hair, bare feet tucked beneath her, wearing one of his shirts. Yoon Hae-rin laughed, leaning forward to kiss him. The sound ripped something open inside Amara. She climbed down blindly, stumbled into the bushes, and vomited until her throat burned. The world tilted, sharpened, rearranged itself into something cruelly clear. She wasn't the wife. She was the secret, the hidden life, the controlled one, the experiment. Every absence, every excuse, every business trip. Same mornings, same showers, same man. Back in her bedroom, Amara sat on the floor, knees to chest, rocking slightly. Her mind fractured and reassembled, survival clicking into place. Rage didn't explode. It condensed. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A single message appeared. Stay in your cage, or lose your other hand. Amara stared at the screen, then slowly lifted her gaze to the blinking bracelet. Her reflection in the dark glass looked calm. Empty. Dangerous. She typed a reply, erased it, and instead smiled. The cage, she realized, had walls. And walls could be broken. Amara didn't sleep the night after the message. She sat on the edge of the bed until dawn, replaying every word, every breath she'd taken while the bracelet listened. By morning, fear had burned itself into something colder. Precision. The message came just after noon. Parking garage. 1 hour. Come alone. She stared at the phone, then at her reflection in the dark screen. Calm. Blank. The face Taejun trusted. She went. The garage smelled of oil and heat. Concrete pillars cast long shadows as cars drifted in and out, engines echoing like distant thunder. Amara stood beside her car, hands folded, heart hammering so hard she feared the bracelet would betray her. Yoon Hae-rin emerged from between two SUVs as if she'd been waiting there all along. She was exactly as Amara remembered, composed, immaculate, eyes sharp with a confidence that came from knowing too much. Heels clicked softly against the concrete as she approached. You shouldn't be here, Hae-rin said pleasantly. I could say the same, Amara replied. Hae-rin smiled. You're not as fragile as he thinks. Amara's jaw tightened. What do you want? To save time, Hae-rin said, stopping an arm's length away. You're planning to disappear. New paperwork. Hidden email. Sketches under the floor. Her gaze flicked briefly to Amara's wrist. You've been busy. Amara's breath hitched, just slightly. Hae-rin leaned closer. You should stop. Or what? Amara asked. Hae-rin's smile faded. Your mother lives alone. Small apartment. Same routine every day. The world narrowed to a single, roaring point. Don't, Amara whispered. You were never meant to be permanent. Hae-rin continued calmly. You were a phase. A project. He gets bored with projects. Footsteps echoed behind Amara. She turned too late. Hands grabbed her arms. Rough. Efficient. The phone slipped from her fingers and skidded across the concrete. Hae-rin stepped back as if distancing herself from the mess. This is your last lesson, she said. Learn it. Pain exploded. A fist struck her ribs, then her face. She tasted blood. Someone twisted her injured hand, and she screamed, the sound swallowed by the cavernous space. The bracelet blinked wildly as she was dragged toward a van. Please, she gasped, not to them. but to the silence. The van door slammed shut. Darkness. Another blow. Then another. She curled inward, trying to protect what little she had left, while voices murmured above her like this was routine. When the van stopped, she barely felt them throw her out. The sky was a blur of white when consciousness clawed its way back. Sirens. Hands lifting her. A familiar voice cutting through the chaos. Amara. Stay with me. Taejun's face filled her vision, panic etched too perfectly into his features. He cradled her head, shielding her eyes as if the world itself were the danger. I've got you, he said. I won't let anyone hurt you. At the hospital, he never left her side. He spoke softly to doctors, held her good hand, brushed her hair back again and again. When she cried, he wiped her tears with trembling fingers. This ends now, he whispered fiercely. I swear it. I'll protect you. Amara lay still, watching him through half-lidded eyes. The bracelet pulsed steadily against her skin. Too steady. Later, when the room was quiet and Taejun stepped out to take a call, Amara's phone vibrated beneath her pillow. An unknown file appeared, sent from her hidden email. Audio. Her fingers shook as she pressed play. Taejun's voice filled her ears, calm, measured. She needs fear, he was saying. Real fear. Not enough to break her. Just enough to reset her. Another voice laughed softly. Male. Unfamiliar. The attack, the voice asked. Staged, Taejun replied. She'll remember why she needs me. Amara stared at the ceiling as the recording looped. Her heartbeat slowed. Something inside her went very still. The door opened. Taejun returned, concern sliding back into place like a mask. They're increasing security, he said. You'll be safe now. She turned her head toward him. I know, she said quietly. Relief softened his face. Days later, he sat beside her bed and took her hand. I'm divorcing Yoon Hae-rin, he announced. It's over. I'm choosing you. I'll marry you publicly this time. No more shadows. Amara met his eyes and smiled. The bracelet blinked. Somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered the truth the audience could see clearly now. This wasn't rescue. It was the trap closing tighter than ever. Amara woke before dawn to the sound of something breathing beside her. Not sleeping. Watching. She didn't move. She kept her eyes closed, counting the seconds between breaths, letting the fears settle into something colder and sharper. When she finally opened her eyes, Taejun was already sitting up, elbows on his knees, his gaze fixed on the far wall like a man staring at the edge of a cliff. You hide things beautifully, he said softly. Her stomach dropped. He stood and walked toward the studio wing without looking back. Amara followed, each step heavier than the last, knowing instinctively that the lie was over. The studio door was open. Her drawings were everywhere, pinned to the walls, spread across the floor, stacked neatly on the work table. Left-handed sketches, raw, bold, alive. Designs that told the story of captivity and escape, of a woman tearing herself out of a cage. Taejun picked one up with trembling fingers. You told me you couldn't design anymore, he said. You told me your hand was finished. I lied, Amara said. Her voice surprised her. It didn't shake. He turned slowly. How long? Since I realized you'd already erased me. His jaw tightened. What are you talking about? You divorced me 3 years ago. The words fell cleanly, like a blade. You married Yoon Hae-rin the same month. You built 2 lives on the same estate. 2 villas. 2 wives. 1 lot. For a moment, his face went blank. Then it cracked. Who told you? He demanded. No one. She stepped closer, pointing toward the eastern wall. I saw you, laughing with her, living with her, while I was hidden like a stain you didn't want anyone to see. You don't understand, he said, suddenly frantic. That marriage was duty. Business. She means nothing. She meant enough to destroy my hand. Amara shot back. Enough for you to let it happen. Twice. Silence thundered between them. Taejun's voice dropped. Everything I did was to protect you. You protected your control, she said. You protected your obsession. His eyes darkened. I loved you. No, Amara said quietly. You own me. Something snapped. I can't lose you, he said, grabbing her arm. You are the only real thing in my life. Without you, there's nothing. She pulled free. Then you should have loved me like a human being. His breathing turned uneven. If I can't have you freely, I'll keep you safely. The locks engaged with a dull mechanical click. Doors. Windows. The house sealing itself shut. You're staying, he said, Calmer now, terrifyingly so. Until you remember who you belong to. He took her phone, her laptop, her passport. Rest, he added, brushing her hair back like she was a child. You've been confused. That night, Amara didn't cry. She waited. When the house fell quiet, she slipped into the studio. From beneath the floorboard, she retrieved her bag. Her hands shook as she lifted the bracelet from her wrist. The blinking light pulsed, steady and patient. She smashed it against the marble floor. Once, twice, again and again until the metal split and sparks died into silence. Freedom tasted like blood and dust. She moved barefoot through the service corridor, heart hammering. The delivery exit. The old lock. She worked it with shaking fingers, every second a scream. Click. Cold night air rushed in. 3 blocks away, an old sedan idled. Lena Okafor leaned out the window, eyes wide. Get in. Now. Amara didn't look back. The city blurred as they raced toward the airport. Sirens wailed somewhere distant, everyone sounding like Taejun's voice. At the terminal, the line crawled. Her pulse roared in her ears as she handed over her documents. The immigration officer frowned, typed again. Amara felt the world hold its breath. Then, stamp. Safe travels, the officer said. Her knees nearly gave out. She walked through the gate without running, without turning around. Somewhere behind her, alarms would soon ring. Somewhere, Taejun would wake to an empty house. And a shattered leash. But not here. Not now. As the plane lifted into the sky, Amara pressed her forehead to the window. Below her, Seoul shrank into a scatter of lights, beautiful and merciless. Amara Ibekwe dissolved somewhere over the clouds. What remained was a woman who had learned the cost of cages, and how to break them. And far below, in a locked villa full of drawings that no longer belonged to him, Taejun would finally understand. Love does not survive ownership. An obsession always eats itself alive. The villa felt wrong the moment Taejun stepped inside. No music, no movement, no voice calling his name. The air was cold, heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. His shoes echoed across the marble floor as he walked deeper inside, irritation already clawing at his chest. Amara, he called, calm on the surface, sharp underneath. No answer. He moved faster now, opening doors, checking rooms. The bedroom was empty. The studio lights were off. Her scent, faint traces of citrus and fabric dye, was already fading, like she'd been erased on purpose. Then he saw it. The bracelet. Shattered pieces scattered across the marble floor near the studio entrance. Metal bent, crystal cracked, the tracking core exposed like a severed nerve. Taejun froze. His breath left him in a slow, hollow exhale. He crouched, fingers hovering over the fragments, not touching yet. The realization settled in stages. First disbelief, then rage, then something darker and quieter. She wouldn't, he muttered. But she had. His eyes lifted, and that was when he noticed the envelope. White, neatly placed on the studio table. His name written in calm, deliberate handwriting. Taejun stood, every muscle tight, and tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. And the wedding ring. The ring he had placed on her finger with shaking hands, promising protection, love, permanence. It sat there now, lifeless, accusing. His eyes scanned the note. You never loved me. You loved the cage. I am choosing air. No signature. No goodbye. His hands trembled. His jaw clenched so hard it ached. He laughed once, short, brittle, then again, louder, spiraling into something that wasn't laughter at all. She belongs to me, he whispered to the empty room. The walls didn't answer. Hours passed. Or minutes. Time stopped making sense. By nightfall, the villa looked like a war zone. Furniture overturned. Glass shattered. Designs ripped from walls. Taejun moved through it like a ghost. Eyes wild. Shirt unbuttoned. Hands shaking as he poured drink after drink he didn't finish. He replayed her face in his mind. Every hesitation. Every silence. Every time she looked at him like she was already gone. He had mistaken stillness for surrender. His phone buzzed. Yoon Hae-rin's name flashed on the screen. He stared at it, breathing hard, then answered. What is it? His voice was flat, dangerous. I heard Amara left, Hae-rin said carefully. The staff is talking. Taejun, this is becoming a problem. The board. I'm divorcing you. Silence. What? Effective immediately, he continued, voice cold and surgical. Your accounts are frozen. Your voting rights revoked. Your family contracts terminated. You can't, her voice cracked. You need me. You wouldn't exist without. I existed before you, he said quietly. And I'll exist after. He ended the call. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was emptiness. Days later, the villa remained abandoned. Curtains drawn. Lights off. A palace without a queen, or a purpose. Taejun stood alone in the studio one last time, staring at the broken bracelet still lying where she left it. He didn't pick it up. He couldn't. Across the world, sunlight poured through tall windows. Paris breathed differently. The studio was alive with motion. Fabric draped over mannequins, sketches pinned to corkboards, scissors slicing through silk with confident hands. Zuri Ibekwe stood at the center of it all. Her hair was pulled back, face bare, focused. She moved with certainty now, no hesitation in her steps, no fear in her eyes. Each design carried sharp lines, open shapes, deliberate fractures, beauty born from confinement broken apart. On the glass door of the studio, etched in clean black lettering, was a name that had never existed before. Zuri Ibekwe. Inside, a collection title was written across the main wall. The Gilded Cage. Zuri stepped back, studying the final piece on the mannequin. Gold-threaded fabric opened deliberately at the seams, revealing softness beneath strength. She smiled, not wide, not triumphant, just real. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down. A message from Lena. He's still looking for you. The old tension flickered, just for a second. Zuri exhaled slowly. She deleted the message. No reply. No panic. She set the phone face down and turned back to her work, fingers smoothing fabric, eyes steady. Behind her, Paris moved on. And somewhere far away, a man searched an empty cage, convinced the door had never been unlocked.